In 1991, after several years of negotiations and a whole lot of tension, the Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, finally managed to break away from the Soviet Union. They finally had the freedom that they'd wanted for so long. Since then, 50 years have passed since the soldiers of the Red Army occupied these countries. But during the years under the Soviets, repression and fear were the basic ingredients in the lives of the people in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Let's now have a look at some pretty alarming data. In Lithuania alone, a country of little more than 2.5 million people, these numbers were recorded.
200,000 people were arrested, questioned, and imprisoned. 132,000 people were deported, especially to Siberia. 75,000 prisoners, deportees, and partisans were eliminated by the Soviet regime.
And if all of that wasn't enough, at the time of their independence, poverty and shortages were everyday realities for all of the inhabitants of these countries.
I remember the days when the counters of the shops in Tallinn were empty and the people were starving. The economy more or less had to be rebuilt from scratch.
Since then, dear viewer, things have changed a lot, more than a lot in fact. From the very moment these countries regained their independence, they decided to bet it all on democracy and freedom. Their economies are today some of the freest ones, they are members of the EU and NATO, and they prosper. Today, these are countries with very high standards of living, and they can really be considered rich countries. The transformation, it really has been total and remarkable. In 2009, they suffered, along with the rest of the world, through the financial crisis, and it really seemed as if their economies were on the verge of collapse.
Latvia's economy contracts almost 18% in the fourth quarter of 2009.
But against all odds, they managed to recover in a very short period of time. Indeed, they became an example to other countries like Spain, Greece, and Portugal. But that's a whole different thing that we're going to talk about in a future video. In this video, we're going to focus on Lithuania and talk about a problem that is shared by a lot of the countries in Eastern Europe. A problem that today is actually one of the biggest threats to their future.
Brain drain.
The history of Lithuania and all of the Baltic states in general since their freedom in 1991, well, it's a history of success. Today they are modern, open countries with prosperous economies. But as with any good story, not everything is quite so pretty. Yes, there are issues these countries are facing, and today we're going to particularly focus on Lithuania. In this country, the biggest problem is brain drain. Yup, that's emigration with an E. And this is no small problem for the country.
Since 2004, when the country was integrated into the EU, Lithuania has lost more than 10% of its population. That is, more than 300,000 people, especially young people, have decided to pack up and move to a different country. Most of those have chosen to move to the United Kingdom.
Yeah, while in Western Europe and the United States, they are concerned about immigration, in Lithuania it is the other way around. They are concerned about people leaving. They are worried that this might end up decapitalizing the country.
Since 1990, we have lost about 800,000 people, and for a small country, this is a huge loss. We are losing our youngest and brightest, and in the future we will just have old people who will be dying. We will have a dying society.
And as always, the ones who are leaving tend to be the most capable and best prepared young people. This, of course, has a significant impact on the country's economy. The number of young people working decreases, talent leaves the country, and the population ages. But this is not just a problem for Lithuania.
Since the early 1990s, some 20 million of Central and Eastern Europe's most talented workers have left, and they have headed largely to Western Europe.
So who do you think has benefited from all of this talent redistribution? Yep, you got that right, it's the wealthiest countries. And that is why we have to be careful about the messages being sent by politicians who are attempting to criminalize immigration in order to get votes. Yes, we're looking at you, Theresa May and Donald Trump, but I know what you're thinking. If the Baltic countries have been so successful, why are people leaving? Well, because they are looking out for their own personal success. Look, for one, these countries have managed to develop a well-prepared young population who can also speak English, two must-haves when it comes to looking for a future in another place. And then we also have the fact that because of all the growth that has happened since 1991, these people can now leave the country in a comfortable way. But there is still the key question to answer: why are they leaving if things are going so well? Well, that's not really that hard to explain.
Even though salaries have improved a lot in the last several years, the difference between the wealthiest countries is still quite big. As an example, while the average salary in Lithuania is about 800 euros, in the United Kingdom it is almost 2,500 euros, or 3 times more.
All of this, well, it might leave you wondering whether this impressive economic development was actually good for the Baltic countries. Well, we would say that overall, yes, it's certainly worth it, but it does leave us with a couple of very important questions. Well, the first one is, what is the cost of all of this? And second, how can they stop the brain drain?
Putting an end to emigration.
So, stopping this brain drain, it's become a pretty major priority for Eastern European countries. In some of these countries, like Poland, Latvia, and Hungary, they have started a return campaign in order to persuade immigrants to come back home.
I would welcome all Polish people who went abroad. If only they could come back, it would be a great day for Poland.
However, while it's a nice sentiment, it is definitely in Lithuania where there is a larger concern about the brain drain that there has been more significant support from society.
In the last parliamentary elections, celebrated in October, the Lithuanian Greens and Farmers Union won the elections and took control of the government. This Pinteresque party had only one MP in the previous elections. Their main promise? Putting an end to emigration.
But, well, of course, this is easier said than done. So the question is, how is this party going to succeed? A party led, by the way, by Ramūnas Karbauskis, one of the most important businessmen in the country. Well, apparently their top priority is to stop emigration by attracting much more foreign investment. They claim that if they can succeed in getting more foreign money for investment, they will be able to provide more jobs with higher salaries. So, well, how are they planning to do this? Well, by reducing bureaucracy, chasing corruption, and also by making adjustments to the labor market. And the truth is that this does make a ton of sense, and we could say that the Baltic countries really do seem to know how to get things done. But hold on for just a second, because it's not the end of the story. There are some other things that, well, they don't look quite so good.
The shadows of the Lithuanian plan.
On the one hand, at the same time as the government promised foreign investment, they have also committed to raise taxes by eliminating what is known as a flat tax. Look, in Lithuania, as well as in Estonia and Latvia, the tax systems, they're really simple. In Lithuania's case, there is this flat tax, which is a rate of 15% for people and companies. That is to say that a Lithuanian who makes $10,000 pays $1,500 in taxes, and the one who makes 10 times more at 100,000 euros also pays 10 times more at 15,000 euros. Raising taxes in this way sort of goes against the foreign investment and higher salaries plan, and this rise will directly harm both of those things. And by the way, corporate taxes, they're not as low as they might seem.
If we add up the social security contributions and other taxes, companies pay more than 40% of their gross profits in taxes, according to the World Bank.
And now we also have to point out the issue of Russia and NATO. The previous Lithuanian governments, and the current is no exception, have insisted on scaring the population and also the rest of the world with the Russian threat, saying that the country is constantly in danger. Okay, now while it is true that the threats are real, it's not really a brilliant way to instill confidence in potential investors. And finally, and maybe most importantly of all, there is a cultural matter that affects the entire country. So you might wonder, right, if there's this brain drain going on, wouldn't it be logical to try and compensate for this by bringing in young professionals from other countries? Well, that's kind of a problem because this country, it's also a bit suspicious about immigration. Most of these countries, they're a touch nationalist. context. Anyway, if anything is for certain, it's that Lithuania, as well as Estonia and Latvia, have done their homework, and their policies are certainly much more efficient than the ones that predominate in the rest of Europe. Remember, in just 25 years, they have managed to become rich countries with high standards of living. And, well, now I would like to know what you think. Do you think these countries will finally be able to stop this brain drain? Well, we're looking forward to hearing what you think in the comment section below, and as always, if you like this video, please do hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already for brand new videos every Monday and Thursday, and don't forget to check out the Reconsider Media podcast. They provided the vocals in this episode that aren't mine, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.